His pain was his pleasure, and his fantasies were far worse. Albert Fish's private world was filled with twisted rituals. He inflicted pain on himself in ways most people couldn't imagine. He whipped his own body with belts and paddles, pierced his skin with needles, and found disturbing satisfaction in every act. His obsession with pain blurred the line between punishment and desire, fueling a fantasy life that grew darker with each passing year. When investigators finally arrested him, they discovered X-rays that revealed dozens of needles lodged deep inside his body. These weren't recent wounds, they had been there for years. His hidden obsession shocked even hardened doctors and police officers, showing just how far his sadistic cravings had consumed him. The most dangerous predator is the one you never see coming. Albert Fish's appearance became his deadliest weapon. To strangers, he was just a quiet, harmless old man, gray-haired, frail, and soft-spoken. But behind that mask was one of the most feared predators of the 20th century. He earned the chilling nickname the Gray Man because he blended so easily into any crowd, invisible in plain sight. Fish used his disguise of kindness to approach children. He promised them food, gifts, or small jobs to gain their trust. Parents didn't think twice about him. He looked too weak, too ordinary to pose a threat. But this carefully crafted persona allowed him to lure victims with ease, hiding his monstrous nature beneath a grandfatherly smile. The shadows of New York hid secrets, and children began to vanish. By the early 1900s, Albert Fish had turned his fantasies into terrifying reality. He targeted children across New York City, luring them away with promises of candy, money, or work. Many of these children never returned home, their disappearances unsolved, their names lost to history. For grieving families, the truth of what happened to their loved ones would never be fully known. The crimes were brutal, acts of torture and murder that went beyond comprehension. Police had no idea that the frail old man walking their streets was behind these disappearances. Each crime left a haunting silence, as if the city itself was being stalked by an unseen predator. Fish had begun his reign of terror, and no one yet realized the true scope of his evil. Albert Fish, a man remembered as one of the most sadistic killers in American history. Beyond the legends and his twisted confessions, there were real children, real families, and real tragedies. From the heartbreaking story of Grace Budd to the unsolved disappearances of Emma Richardson, Robin Jane Lew, and many others, each case reveals the horrifying scope of the monster known as the Gray Man. These stories aren't just about crime, they are about innocence stolen and shadows that haunted a nation. Firstly, we talk about the most confirmed children, which are Grace Budd, Frances McDonnell, Billy Gaffney. Grace Budd, confirmed, 1928. Grace Budd's case is the most infamous tied to Albert Fish. Pretending to be a wealthy farmer named Frank Howard, Fish befriended her family in New York. He offered a job to her brother Edward but instead asked if Grace could accompany him to a supposed birthday party. The Budds agreed, trusting the frail old man. Grace never came back. Years later, Fish sent the Budds a chilling letter confessing in horrifying detail how he murdered and cannibalized the young girl. Frances McDonnell, confirmed, 1924. 9-year-old Frances disappeared while playing outside near his Staten Island home. Witnesses recalled seeing him follow an elderly man who matched Fish's description. His body was later discovered in the woods, assaulted and strangled. Fish would confess years later, describing details only the killer could have known. This became one of his earliest known murders. Billy Gaffney, confirmed, 1927. 4-year-old Billy vanished while playing in a Brooklyn hallway with another child. That child later described his abductor as the Boogeyman, an old man with gray hair who led Billy away. Billy was never found. Fish later admitted to torturing and murdering him in one of the most graphic confessions in criminal history. Police sealed parts of his written statement because of its sheer brutality. Now let's talk about strongly suspected victims, which are Emma Richardson, Robin Jane Lew, Mary Ellen O'Connor, Benjamin Collings. Emma Richardson, suspected, 1926. 5-year-old Emma disappeared while walking home in Manhattan. A neighbor later reported seeing an elderly man talking to her before she vanished. Her body was found soon after, but the case was never solved. Although never confirmed, the crime bore disturbing similarities to Fish's methods, leading many investigators to believe Emma was another of his victims. Robin Jane Lew, suspected, 1930. Young Robin Jane Lew was abducted while playing outside her Bronx home. Witnesses described an older man in the area at the time, but no proof ever tied Fish directly. Later, Fish hinted at involvement during his confessions. Though unconfirmed, many historians and investigators suspect Robin may have been another life taken by him. Mary Ellen O'Connor, suspected, 1932. 16-year-old Mary Ellen O'Connor disappeared in Queens. Days later, her body was found in the woods, brutally assaulted. The killer's profile fit Fish's patterns, a frail old man who lured children and teenagers. Though police had no hard evidence at the time, Fish was later linked to the area and confessed privately to a priest that he had killed a girl in Queens. Many believe this was Mary Ellen. Benjamin Collings, suspected, 1910s. During his early years roaming New York, Fish claimed to have murdered a boy on Staten Island named Benjamin. Very little is known about this case, but Fish himself admitted it during questioning. Investigators could never confirm Benjamin's identity, but the confession suggested Fish's killing spree began long before the 1920s. The most disturbing point is there were more that he confessed. Fish claimed to have killed at least 100 children, though investigators doubted the full number. Many children from poor neighborhoods, orphanages, and streets of New York vanished during this time. Because records were poorly kept, and families in poverty often went unheard, many potential victims may never be known. These missing children became part of the terrifying mystery that surrounded Albert Fish. One innocent invitation led to one of the most infamous crimes in American history. In 1928, Albert Fish set his sights on the Budd family. He appeared at their home in New York, posing as a wealthy employer looking for workers. His frail, grandfatherly appearance fooled them completely. At first, he claimed to want to hire young Edward Budd for farm work. But his real target was Edward's younger sister, 10-year-old Grace Budd. Fish gained the family's trust with charm and lies. He convinced them to let Grace accompany him to a birthday party for his niece. Grace happily dressed in her best clothes and left with him, but she would never return. This single act cemented Fish's name in true crime history, as the world later discovered the horrifying fate that awaited her. Years later, the Budd family received a letter that revealed the unthinkable. For years, the Budd family lived in torment, never knowing what happened to their daughter. Then, in 1934, Albert Fish sent them a letter that shocked even seasoned investigators. Written in his shaky hand, the letter described how he had killed and cannibalized Grace Budd. His words were so graphic and disturbing that parts of the letter were never made public. The cruelty wasn't just in his actions, but in his choice to relive them in writing, forcing the family to suffer again. This letter, however, would ultimately seal his fate. Detectives traced the stationery and envelope back to Fish, leading to his long-awaited arrest. The gray man's mask finally cracked, and the world saw the monster within. In December 1934, police arrested Albert Fish at a boarding house in Manhattan. Despite his frail, elderly appearance, the list of charges against him was terrifying. During interrogation, he confessed to the Grace Budd murder and hinted at many more crimes. Detectives were horrified by his calm descriptions of torture, murder, and cannibalism. His trial in 1935 was one of the most shocking in American history. The jury heard testimony about his sadistic obsessions, his self-inflicted mutilations, and his horrific crimes against children. Despite attempts by his defense to argue insanity, the jury sentenced him to death. For the first time, Albert Fish could no longer hide behind his harmless disguise. For the first time, Albert Fish could not escape the justice he had evaded for decades. In January 1936, Albert Fish was executed at Sing Sing prison in the electric chair. Despite his frail appearance, he showed no fear. In fact, reports claim he welcomed the electric chair, even calling it the supreme thrill. Witnesses were horrified at his lack of remorse, but relieved that his reign of terror had finally ended. Fish's death brought closure to some families, but it also left behind chilling questions. How many victims were never identified? How many families never knew what happened to their children? His execution ended his life, but not the nightmares he created. Justice was served, but the scars remain. The capture and execution of Albert Fish brought some measure of justice to the families of his known victims, especially the Budd family. His confessions, though horrifying, gave answers where there had only been painful silence. For those who lost loved ones, the end of Fish meant the end of a monster who had haunted their lives. Yet, true justice can never fully heal the grief of families whose children were taken. While the court sentenced Fish to death, the emotional toll of his crimes will forever echo in the hearts of those who lived through his cruelty. Albert Fish changed the way America saw monsters, because he looked nothing like one. The story of Albert Fish shook America to its core. His crimes forced investigators, psychologists, and society to confront the terrifying truth: predators can look ordinary, even harmless. The case influenced criminal profiling and deepened the understanding of sadistic psychology in the early 20th century. Fish's legacy was not only his crimes, but the fear he left behind. He reminded the world that evil often hides in plain sight: a quiet neighbor, an old man, a figure no one suspects. The gray man became a symbol of hidden danger, shaping the way true crime is studied to this day. You are watching Twisted Truths, where crimes are unmasked and justice is revealed. Albert Fish's story is one of obsession, cruelty, and horror, but also of justice finally delivered. His execution may have silenced him, but his crimes forever changed the way society views evil. Do you believe true monsters are born, or created by the darkness around them?